And I always believed that if you're searching for something, searching in life about some truth, about some reality, and many scientists, many psychologists were looking for something else. My sort of wish was to help him be more respectful to his wife. And in that way, I stumbled upon this concept that I gave him the analogy of the traffic lights. And I thought maybe if it has worked for him, it might work for somebody else. So I tried on the second couple, and I tried on the third couple, and tried on the fourth couple. And gradually, I realized that it had some power. It had some, and then I realized that a green zone, that it started the concept started to grow. It was like a seed, and it grew in my mind. And I said, maybe the green zone communication, a healthy, peaceful communication, can only take place when both parties are in the green.
As a teacher, I was extremely wrapped up in my career to the point of obsession, and lost the focus of some of the other aspects of my life, and frankly even neglected to some extent the relationship with my family. Having discovered the green zone and dedicated myself wholly to living in the green zone, I find that I am now able to relate to the people much easier, much more positively than I have in the past. And I am healthier than I have been. I am doing things that make me feel positive about life, my relationships, and I look forward to new challenges, which is totally opposite to the way I felt a few years ago when I was living in the red zone. I was not looking forward to the next day. I hated my job. I detested the people I worked with. I detested the bureaucracy and hypocrisy of the educational system. That is no longer my concern. I am focused now on the positive aspects of human existence, and I'm doing things that make me happy, and I believe I'm making a difference in the lives of others.
My introduction to the Green Zone was probably a lifesaver, definitely a lifesaver for me. I met Dr. Sohail approximately 10, 11 years ago. I have to admit I didn't take it seriously for probably the first 2 years. Then I don't know what happened, but something hit me, and boy am I glad it did. It taught me of the Green Zone. It has changed my life totally. As far as relationships, my co-workers, home life, the way I treat my daughters, everything about it, my friends. It's just been a very, very, very good thing to happen.
When I introduced the Green Zone to my daughter and she so eagerly embraced it, the next person I wanted to share it with was my mom. My mom and I, if you saw us today, you would comment at how green our relationship is. It really is in the green zone. Somebody would say it's bright green, but we weren't always that way. As a therapist, you know that those relationships are very important, and you really work on improving them over the years. And I always did with my mom. But when I was introduced to the Green Zone, I realized that it was something that I was really going to find of benefit in my relationship with my mom. So I introduced her to the concept of the Green Zone. She knew Sohail. She had met him when I met him 30 years ago, and she was very fond of him. She loved his sense of humor. She loved his easygoing nature. And so she was very eager to read his book. And so I gave her a copy. Sohail autographed a copy of The Art of Living in Your Green Zone, and I sent it to her, gave it to her. And she was delighted with it. She really could embrace it. And so we started using that language and using that way of communicating in our relationship. And so now if we get into a yellow zone or red zone situation, and it's very, very rare, I don't remember getting into a red zone situation with her lately, but if we sort of slide into the yellow, what we do is three things. First, the other person will stop and be quiet, hoping that the person who slid into the yellow will get the idea, do that sort of assessment of what zone they're in and correct it themselves. If that doesn't happen, the other person will say, you know, I think we're getting into the yellow here. I think we're not going in the right direction. And if that doesn't work, then one of us will gracefully end the conversation, planning to reconnect at a later date when we're both back into the green. And it has been such an incredible growth experience for both of us. We went from having sort of a yellow-green kind of relationship to having a bright green relationship. And now we are at the stage where we talk about things that we have actually never talked about before in our lives. We have just recently decided to go on vacation together for 2 weeks, which is a really big thing. We've never done that before. And we have started to share some things about our lives. And I've realized how similar I am to her. I'm just blown away by the things that I struggle with in my life. You know, my creativity, my love of creativity, and how long it takes me to sort of process something that's creative and work it through and come to the point where I have something that I really like, and it's exactly the way that I want it. And I realized the other day, as we were talking about her redoing and decorating part of her house, she's exactly like me. And I had never known that before. So we've moved into this space where we are not afraid to talk to each other about difficult situations. There are issues that we've decided that are off limits, and we're not going to talk about them. So in a way, we have resolved many of the yellow zone situations that we were experiencing. We have dissolved many that we were experiencing, and we have this wonderful bright green relationship, and it's very joyful.
I was introduced to the green zone in March of 2003 on the recommendation of my family doctor. I met with Dr. Sohail. Dr. Sohail, in one of the very early sessions, provided me with his book, Living in the Green Zone, which I read, and I felt that the book had been written for me. I could absolutely identify with the book, the concepts of green and yellow and red, which I'll come back to, but it made the book very, very easy for me to read and for me to understand. It turns out, from my perspective, that I'd been in a depression since at least 1978, and was first diagnosed by my family doctor in 1991, at which time I was given Prozac. Over time, the Prozac just didn't work, nor did some other antidepressants, which really led to my wife asking me to go for help because it was having such a bearing on our family life and our relationship. So through my family doctor, I did meet up with Dr. Sohail and learned about the art of living in the green zone. What basically had been happening with me, I'd spent years and years in the red zone. And the red zone for me is one of anger, or resentment, feeling that there's suspicion about other people around, ulterior motives, those kind of issues. The yellow zone would be a warning to me that I was going towards the red zone. But unfortunately, I would never be able to heed or forestall those warnings, those signals that were coming to me. By comparison, the green zone I describe as one of being happy, contented, peace of mind, and being able to understand what was happening around me and how it affected my thinking and my interpretations of everyday events that occurred around me.